Yeah, so did we.
Yeah, that's right. It's not adding to tobacco shop, it's simply relocating them.
Right.
Existed, I don't think it's an intention for moratorium.
No, and plus they're good people.
Good morning. I will call this meeting to order. It's the regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning and Planning Committee. This day, May 23rd, 2019. I'm Councilmember Reich. I will be chairing in the stead of Councilmember Schrader, who is on city business. We do have a quorum. I'm joined by my colleagues, Councilmembers Ellison, Goodman, and Gordon. We are a quorum. We will proceed with today's agenda, which has 3 items, including consent and 2 public hearings. I'll go through the 1 consent item, which is the rezoning of Wilson Molina, 2521 Bloomington Avenue. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting nay. That carries, and we can now go to the public hearing portion. And who will be presenting that? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, council members. Today you have before you 2 waivers to the interim ordinance, the tobacco moratorium. And so I'll give a little bit of background for both of the waivers in general, and then we'll look at each one individually. The tobacco moratorium, as you well know from our update recently, was a response to the increase in tobacco product shops that came as a result of the menthol tobacco restriction. And the City Council adopted a moratorium in August of 2018 to guide to restrict the creation of new tobacco product shops while staff was investigating the issue. The tobacco moratorium does have a provision for hardship, so a waiver to the restrictions of the interim ordinance may be granted where the City Council finds substantial hardship caused by the restrictions and finds that the waiver will not unduly affect the integrity of the planning process or the purposes of the interim ordinance. So I will now lead into one of the presentations here, and then we'll have an opportunity for a public hearing. The first item on the agenda is Lewis Pipe and Tobacco, which is proposed to locate at 825 Nicollet Mall. This is an exclusive tobacco shop that's been in operation for around 50 years in the city of Minneapolis. They were previously located in Rand Tower at 527 Marquette Avenue South, and due to some changes with ownership, they had to relocate the store. So the applicant was required to find a new location and has relocated in the Medical Arts Building at 825 Nicollet Mall. Due to the relocation, they are required to obtain a new tobacco license. The previous tobacco product shop license is non-transferable to a new location. And so in terms of the specific hardship for this site, that was the hardship is that this is not the creation of a new tobacco product shop, it's a relocation of an existing shop a few blocks away. And so in terms of the effect on the planning process, the moratorium was created to limit the proliferation of tobacco product shops and the concentration of tobacco product shops. And so the proposal to relocate an existing tobacco product shop a few blocks away would not result in a net increase of tobacco product shops and should not result in the concentration of product shops in one particular area of the city. And so staff is recommending approval of the interim ordinance for 825 Nicollet Mall, and I will stand for questions.
Are there any questions per the staff presentation? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed in?
I'm not sure for the second.
Okay. Does anyone wish to come forward? Does anyone wish to come forward on public hearing number 1? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and give the floor to Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move to support the waiver of the moratorium. I think this is a perfect example of an explanation where a moratorium should be waived, and I only feel bad that there has been a major business interruption as a result of the move and then having to go through this process, which has been troublesome to the owner. I did have an opportunity to go to the tobacco shop and talk to the owner, and this is a business that's been family-owned for 50 years, and the owner lives on the north side. So he actually lives in the city, too. And I think it's really important that when we put these moratoriums in place, we are open to waivers for situations like this, which is why I'm urging your support.
Thank you for that. Any other conversation? Seeing none, we have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting nay. That carries. We can now go to item number 2 of our public hearing agenda.
Item number 2 is Weber Mart Bodega Smokes located at 1701 44th Avenue North. The applicant has applied for a tobacco waiver to subdivide the current store and establish a new tobacco product shop. This is a convenience store that is relatively new. It was opened in 2016. The applicant has indicated that menthol tobacco sales restriction has been a severe impact on his profitability, and so the proposal is to subdivide the existing convenience store into a small, approximately 200 square foot tobacco product shop, which would allow him to continue selling menthol tobacco. And as a note, the site is currently zoned C1, so even if a tobacco waiver were approved, it would still require rezoning to C2. In this case, the applicant has cited the inability to sell menthol tobacco as a hardship to the successful operation of the business, but staff has not identified any specific characteristics to this particular application that would not be shared equally among all convenience store owners that have been impacted by the menthol sales restriction and tobacco moratorium. And so in light of the fact that staff is in the process of a study recommending potential policy outcomes that will guide the location of new tobacco product shops, allowing a new tobacco product shops to establish at 1701 North 44th would, potentially not comply with whatever policy outcomes come out of the study. So in this case, staff is recommending denial of the tobacco waiver, and I will stand for questions.
Any questions per the staff presentation? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wish to sign in? But before we have people who give testimony, I'll allow the applicant to make their case.
Hello, council members. My name is Kevin Aldwalk. I'm here on behalf of myself and my business in North Minneapolis. Before I start, I'd like to point out a couple of facts. Actually, there is a substantial hardship for me personally in this location. I submitted bank statements that show and demonstrate that, and if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer. Second, the staff report, I actually personally reviewed the policy recommendation moving forward. We have no clear direction yet. The staff doesn't have clear direction as to recommend to the city council how to proceed next. They have several items on as recommendation, but it's not discussed yet. Approving my petition today won't hinder any planning. We still would comply with whatever city council approved down the road. It'll just give me a fighting chance to move forward to the rezoning process, which is a whole entire process by itself. So we're not superseding or hindering any planning for the future. It actually just gives me the chance to move forward. Saying that, I'd like to read a statement for you here, then I'll be happy to answer any questions for you. As I said, my name is Kevin Aldwalk. I'm here to represent myself. I have been a small business owner in North Minneapolis for the past 20 years. I own a business often stigmatized by bad reputation and reckless operators. I assure you my business never been one of those. I always found a way to turn my location to become a hub to serve my neighbors and community. Back in August, after the menthol ban, I knew the results would be devastating for me personally. I actually was on the forefront trying to convince you guys to seek out other alternatives. After all, my store is relatively new. I'm in close proximity to 3 other cities within a mile radius that allow that product to be sold. I didn't pursue rezoning before just to give a chance to counsel my community. I figured that I owned that much to try this business without mental. I actually tried the same business model in the same location 3 times before tobacco, and always failed. I'm sorry to inform you that this policy didn't address anything. A statewide ban would have been more effective, and I would be in favor of. It only created a disadvantage to my business and inconvenienced my customers. After all, we still carry and display tobacco products on our premises now. My customers shifted their shopping to nearby cities. I have a Super America within 1.4 mile where this product is still available in Brooklyn Center. 1.5 miles to Cub Foods, which is carry the same product that I'm restricted from carrying. 1.7 miles to the nearest tobacco shop in Brooklyn Center. 1.4 miles in Crystal and Robbinsdale. This is almost within walking distance. It didn't prevent youth access because honestly, and I forwarded most of you my concerns in regards of online sales. What youth prefer for product is readily available online, whether it's vape pens. It's unrestricted, unregulated, no age restrictions. I urge you today to approve my application. Rezoning would allow me to section off part of my store, 200 square feet. It's very limited. It's the size of my counter that I currently have tobacco behind. It will be dedicated to tobacco products only. It will be with a separate entrance where anyone under the age 21 won't have access to. This would allow me to address exposure and targeting. I'd like to address that. I don't like displaying tobacco products, but this is part of my business too. It would allow me hopefully to regain back my customers. Before the ban, I had a thriving business. I had 8 full-time employees, 4 part-time employees at $13 an hour. The minimum wage is $9.25 in the cities for a convenience store. I'm doing this to give back to my community too. All of them were locally hired. This policy cost me 70% of my traffic, and it's documented through deposits in my bank account. It reflected on all sales. I didn't sell $100,000 worth of tobacco. It actually hit me in my milk sales. I used to, for instance, sell $2,000 worth of milk. I'm down to $600 a month. My bread, I used to sell 80 loaves of bread a week. My bread expires now on my shelf. I meet the same customers that used to stop by my store on my way to pick up my own cigarettes in Brooklyn Center. And they tell me, hey, sorry, I don't want to do 2 stops. I love your store, but it's very inconvenient to stop here, pick up my snacks, then go and get my smoke somewhere else. My operating expenses since the ban didn't decrease, it actually increased. More licensing fees, more property taxes, the same utility and expense as before, yet less traffic, less support from our city. I'm sorry to say that. I'm currently struggling financially and would be forced to close down and file for bankruptcy if my application isn't approved. I believe I have enough support from my community for this project. I have support of my council member Cunningham in Ward 4, which is, I want to state for the record, he is anti-tobacco, but after several visits, he recognized the need. I have the neighborhood organization support, and I submitted a petition with 400 signatures. 200 of them were senior citizens in high-rise within a walking distance of my place that required this and supported. And we submitted numerous emails for this particular application. I personally got copied on 30 of them in support. I understand there is one objection, and which is I understand where the objection is coming from. Please allow this, grant me this. I'll count on your support in this matter. To address the moratorium itself, yes, the city went from 25 smoke shops to 52 currently, before the moratorium. One is established in North Minneapolis. We gained one in entire North Minneapolis, which is in Ward 5. And not to talk down on people, they're actually not there for the community. They're there for the business. It became a smoke shop. I proposed 200 square feet, so I could be limited with the product I carry. Back in 2014, when we started the flavor ban, I was on the forefront supporting that with Council Member Blong Yang. Those are bad products. I don't want them in the hands of kids. Yet, with 21 for age restriction, I think we're headed to the right directions, and responsible operators shouldn't be restricted from serving customers. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation and the details therein. And I will now open up for general commentary. Is there anyone who signed in? Yes. Okay.
Hi, my name is Robin Lewis. I am the chair of Waiver Camden organization, and I support Kevin because I have actually moved into the neighborhood January 2018. I became chair November 2018. Since then, I've got to know Kevin, and I frequent there often for coffee. I am not a smoker, but I do understand the impact he has on our community. The youth he hires there, the children who come there, the teens who come there from the high school, they come there and it's a safe place. He's a very mentor. He mentors the students. He has a lot of seniors who come there. The reason why I support it as a non-smoker is because he's also a businessman, and he should be able to thrive in the community because he does sell fruits and vegetables. He sells the milk, and this gives him the opportunity to continue to do what Kevin does, is what impacts our community. Because people come there, they sit there, they have coffee. He offers me free coffee or anyone to come in, and we socialize. I grew up in Minneapolis, South Minneapolis. I'll be 54 in August. I know what a corner store is. I know what corner stores were. This is the only corner store that I will go into because I do not like what they've become. I could go to a corner store. My mother could send me to get meat. My mother could send me to get milk. Okay, and then I also could get candy, but I was safe. I knew Mr. Johnson on 46th and 4th Avenue. Everyone knew him, and he was an impact in our community across from Minneapolis Public School, Field School. And I grew up around that, and so I think it's important for him as a businessman to be able to continue to impact his community. He's guided me as a vice chair from Waiver Camden to get involved. I've met more people in my community by going to his store who I'm in collaboration with, would try to develop a relationship with students from high school, from Patrick Henry High School. Something I would not have been able to do because Kevin knows everyone in the neighborhood. And I want you to understand that yes, tobacco is what it is, but you know what? Whenever you want tobacco or alcohol, you're going to go get it wherever it is. Why should a person have to go outside their neighborhood to get what they want? We're living on the north side. I have a car. If I want to go to Brooklyn Park or Roseville and all that, it's not a problem for me. But if I want to go down to Kevin's shop and I can't get what I need, it's not right. It's just not right. So I urge you to support this man because he's more than just a businessman. He impacts the community, the seniors, the youth in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who signed in?
Good morning. My name is Johnny Johnson. I'm also served on the Waiver Camden board. I'm here to support Kevin, the Waiver Camden, Mark Waiver Camden, because I lived in the community since 2007, and I always had a relationship with him. He's been a great supporter of the community in so many other areas. This business that he have here, it's support way more than just cigarettes, you know. There's a senior building there. They need that very badly because without that business being there, they would have to travel so far, and some of them isn't able to travel. And they support that community so much. They're needed. They're needed. Every day, you know, they come out, in spite of the weather, is always there. You know, they can always reach no matter what the condition of the weather is. And it's not just about cigarettes. Like I said, if you don't allow this to go through, this community would be hurt pretty bad, our seniors. And as she was speaking of, the schools is right there, you know. Kevin has been a pillar in this community for so many years, not only just that's his store, his president, what he does for the community. He support everything that's right in the community. Removing his business from this community would cripple it really bad, you know. It's not just a store, it's a support that North Minneapolis really need on a day-to-day basis. Like she said, it's a meeting place where people come, they feel safe. Ain't too many places you can go and do that, you know, and it would be devastating to remove this business.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else who signed in and wishes to speak may come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Brockman Schumacher, and I'm a resident of Weber Camden neighborhood. I live about 2 blocks from the store, and I visit it every morning. I go and I pick up a Mountain Dew. I talk to people. I get a pulse. I get a sense of the pulse of the neighborhood. I interview people. I hand out surveys there. The idea is, I think that, you know, you guys are really looking at this like it's a convenience store. It's not. This is a community hub where people come with problems and we help them network with solutions. People come looking for jobs, and sometimes Kevin can employ them and sometimes he can refer them. People come because they've been injured and they need a ride to the hospital, and we can facilitate that. This is a community hub. This is where people come, people who are hurting, people who are at a disadvantage, frankly, from a lot of us. And this is a resource for them. It's much more than a convenience store. This is a place where neighborhood board members, I should point out, I am on the Weber Camden Neighborhood Organization Board. And this is just, it would be a terrible thing to lose this hub, this community hub in this neighborhood. It's far more than tobacco. This is a place that people can come in the community to build community and to help themselves and to help others in their community. And I just want to make sure that that's emphasized enough for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to come forward? State your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Amanda Dobbs. I'm a lifelong Northside resident. I've actually kind of been crossing paths with Mr. Ottawak for the last 20 years. He's owned multiple businesses on the north side, some of the best businesses on the north side. And until just recently, when I became more active in my community, I was referred to him. He became a resource for me and my family personally. He knows my children. I send my children up there for milk because it's the cheapest place in the neighborhood to get milk. I'm not crazy about the cigarette products there. I think that this is a fantastic compromise for a hardworking Minneapolis man to keep his business, because what's going to happen is he will just take his business elsewhere, and we will lose a bit of Northside culture. A lot of Northside is changing. It's gentrifying, and we need a community hub where everyone is welcome, where everyone can afford the produce and can get what they need on a day-to-day basis. I need you all to understand that this affects a lot of the people who have limited mobility and limited transportation. The median income of the Weber Camden neighborhood is $35,000. You have to imagine that we don't have a lot of resources that we're working with, and to lose a business within walkable distance it would be a difficulty for my family, and I know many others that would be as well. We've got a lot of elders in our community. We've got a lot of underserved people. We cannot lose another business, and I don't understand how these regulations are helping anybody, because the smokers are still smoking. They're just taking their business 50, actually it's 18 blocks away into BC. Let's not lose Mr. Ottawak to the suburbs. We need every single person of color business owner in Minnesota and Minneapolis that we can get, especially in the north side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to come forward? Anyone else wish to come forward? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and yield the floor to Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to just make a few comments. One is that I can speak to the integrity of Kevin. He's come to my office hours, and we've had a lot of conversations. And I'll also say, if my colleagues don't know, that I think Kevin also kind of shocked the hell out of his contemporaries when he actually supported Tobacco 21, one of the few tobacco shop owners that was in support of that legislation. But I also have a couple of shop owners who I think have integrity and are great business owners in my ward who I wouldn't give exception to when it comes to the moratorium. I would be interested to know the viewpoints of my colleague who represents the area, and I also would love to have an opportunity to vet some of the legitimacy of the proximity issues. 44th is pretty close to the suburban areas, and so I'm not sure if my colleagues would be for it, but based on the fact that I haven't been able to vet those issues, and I don't know the opinion of my colleague in that ward, and that we've seen some significant community buy-in, I'll ask the attorneys as well, would it be appropriate for us and would my colleagues approve of postponing action on this item for one cycle? Just because I would just want to know the opinions of, again, my colleagues, and I don't want to start making exceptions randomly because, like I said, there are other shop owners on the north side who I think also have integrity, who aren't going to get waivers, who aren't going to. But I would like some opportunity to vet those two things before taking action on this item. So.
Thank you. I think there was a question directed at staff. We'll listen to that
Mr.
response.
Chair, Councilmember Ellison, Lindsay might be able to advise us on the 60-day law clock. It looks like there would be time to postpone. Of course, the other option would be to forward without recommendation to the full council.
Councilmember Ellison?
Yeah, and then I would recommend that we forward without recommendation, give an opportunity to to vet those issues, But I also understand if my colleagues have apprehensions about that option. But I would move to forward without recommendation.
Okay, so we do have that motion, and we have Councilmember Gordon in queue.
Again, I think that's a reasonable motion. I think that would be something we could do. I think I was leaning more towards probably having to deny it because the hardship all seems to be financial, and it's hard for me to find out why this wouldn't just fit every other tobacco shop. I did have a question for staff. I also wanted to understand, when is the moratorium scheduled to end? Isn't it a 12-month process, or are we probably going to extend it to 18 months?
As far as I know, there have not been any discussions about extending it at this point. So right now, the moratorium would expire at the end of August. And I think concurrently there will be some policy options moving through council this summer.
I appreciate that, and I think most of us were aware there would be ending in August. August isn't very far away from now. I can see that one of the concerns with somebody would be that if you look at some of the options, it will be more difficult after August to open the tobacco shop here. It's unfortunate this wasn't opened when it would have been. There would have been some steps along the way, but it's too bad you didn't get this done before the moratorium. I think there were hopes of repealing the ordinance and changing it and other things, but certainly some people did convert tobacco shops before the moratorium got put in place, which would have been one option. The other option is if you just wait till after August, and then if you can put one in there, you can put one in there. So that's not that long of a wait to find out, but I understand the concern is you might then be prohibited, and this might be what is seen as the only pathway to get there, is to quickly try to get a waiver before it looks like it's too late. So, but I'll say this will give us all food for thought when we are coming up with the ultimate solution is, well, what about this case and other cases? So that will give us an opportunity maybe to kind of weigh some of those variables there too. But I know there's a motion on the floor, and I think moving forward without recommendation will work too. I did check in with the 4th Ward office, and I heard from them that a council member was also supportive of crafting a waiver for this business. And finally, I'll just note, it's really great to hear that the small business is supported so much in the community and such a contributing factor, and nobody wants a treasured neighborhood business to fail. So That's something I think we care about, even if we don't see the legality of giving a waiver for the tobacco shop.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodman?
I would probably support the waiver, and I think we should take it up today. So, and mainly, it's because of all the work I do on economic development and how hard it is to keep a business in North Minneapolis going. And they did what we asked them to do. They stopped selling tobacco in their convenience store, and they're going to be setting up something separate next door, which is a way around it, but that's how liquor works too. You can't sell liquor in grocery stores, so now Byerly's has a liquor store next to it, and so they've done what they needed to do, and I know that it doesn't sound like August is a long time, but for 12 weeks or whatever it would be of declining sales could be enough to put them out of business. And so if the council member of the ward supports it, and we have the head of the neighborhood organization here, and I'm not saying this because you're here, to be fair, I rarely respond to what people say in the audience other than the public hearing, but I just kind of feel like pushing it forward without recommendation is less transparent, because then we don't know who's talking to who behind the scenes. And I understand the purpose of it, but it was to address the proliferation. There were places in the city where there were like half a dozen of these, and this is not a location where there's a half a dozen business owners wanting to do anything. And so I kind of feel like we should support the waiver, and I worry about moving it forward without recommendation only because it feels less transparent. Like we say we're not sure, and then everyone talks behind closed doors, and then we come back with an answer. You can't speak at the council meeting. People don't know why it's happening. So if you are inclined to support a waiver, let's do it today. And if not, we can vote it down, and if it goes 2-2, then it would go forward without recommendation anyway. Or we can make that motion. I just feel like it's really hard, you guys. We're putting so much money into starting to help businesses through the small business team in North Minneapolis, and I just really feel like this is an opportunity to clear one off our plate and not pull the rug out from under them when they're doing what we asked them to do.
I will just make a comment, then I'll let Councilmember Ellison say something. Well, I believe for me to, knowing that the council member of the area is trying to create a supportive waiver, that document would be very valuable, and we don't have that before us. And so I think even though, yes, we would be working towards finding that resolution because the final vote is at the council. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. Whatever vote we take here does go to council. And so the notion that we would have something drafted that would create greater nuance and reinforce the arguments that we have, which were great arguments, by the way, particularly on the hardship front. I will note that moratoriums are put in place for the study purpose, but they do have an effect, and that effect is blunt. And so when you put that criteria, and you can make the best case for the importance of something, the hardship case can be made, but then you have the purpose of the moratorium, which is, of course, the proliferation argument, and that's the sort of thing I want to see the nuance that Councilmember Cunningham might be putting into addressing that, because that's not been addressed yet in testimony. And so I think your motion, Ellison, would allow for that work and would allow for that document to be put in place so we can have that full vote and the full information for support. But now I'll give the floor to you.
I would be open to Councilmember Goodman's suggestion. My only hesitation is that, again, there are other businesses who I think are, who kind of went through the steps of, kind of went through the appropriate steps who before the moratorium I had denied rezoning to, or we had denied rezoning to, and so that was my hesitation. But again, my fear and why I'm not comfortable denying it today is that we don't need an empty storefront on 44th Avenue North, and I take that very seriously. So I've got some apprehensions about the creating exceptions where I haven't before, but actually, I would be open to withdrawing my motion and moving to approve the waiver, because I think that, to the transparency point, I think that can be made here, and I still think there would be an opportunity to follow up with Councilmember Cunningham so that he could maybe speak to why he's supportive of, and I think that he probably would have to justify to the whole council why he's supportive of approving this the waiver. So. So if the clerk's keeping track, I would withdraw my motion and then move to approve the waiver.
And I'm assuming that's in order, clerk, in the more casual nature of a committee work. Okay, so now we have a motion for...
Mr. Chair, I just asked to, as Councilman Rollison, if he could accompany that with a staff direction to do findings, should the motion be successful.
Yeah, yes, and I would also like to direct staff to draft findings.
Okay, Councilmember Gordon.
So there's also this, I just want to be clear with staff and the city attorney, a tobacco shop's prohibited at this location right now because of the zoning?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Lindsay could answer, but that's correct. So should the city approve a waiver today, this applicant, this store owner would still need to submit a rezoning application and have that be approved as well.
And typically, how long does a rezoning application take to go through the city?
Typically, we tell applicants 10 to 12 weeks from the time we have a completed application.
10 to 12 weeks?
Yep.
That would put it after August?
It would be close.
So if the waiver was lifted in August,
So
and
the
he had this, or no, so if the moratorium's lifted in August and he has a waiver, will the waiver count then to beat back any of the new rules that we have?
Maybe Eric can speak to that.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Gordon, no. So at the point the applicant would apply, the rules then in effect would be applicable to the application.
Okay, so it's just for the moratorium part, so it might be moot anyway if we give it because he won't get the rezoning in time, but thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Goodman.
I'm just wondering from staff if you have any idea of what the future land use guidance is in this location. I'm just thinking through to myself, would this get upzoned from C1 to C2? I see some C2 in the area. R4 is pretty intense zoning also. I come up here quite a bit because I use the dog park up in this location a lot. So I'm just wondering if you know offhand what the potential land use guidance would be in 2040?
I don't know in 2040, and one of the questions in 2040 is we don't necessarily know how that's going to track to the zoning districts and what the zoning districts under 2040 for community mixed use or whatever are going to allow. I can say under the current zoning, the 44th is a community corridor. I don't know that we would have land use policy under the current comp plan to support a rezoning to C2. But obviously, again, that's a legislative decision that would come before you.
Okay, so I just would note, though, when you look at the map in front of us, there is C2 within eyesight, and then there's R5 and R4 surrounding it, OR1. These are all more intense zonings, so it's possible that they could get the rezoning. They have to apply and go through the process, and the council member would have to figure out what's going on, but it's not like it's all C1 across the board, so there's no way they would get the rezoning anyway. I don't know what the answer, since you don't know the future guidance, I can only look at this to assume since we upzoned everything else, this was probably upzoned as well. So I think they'd have a chance of being able to get it.
Chair.
Yes.
To answer that question, I did just pull it up. It is Corridor 4 on the future land use map in Minneapolis in the built form map in Minneapolis 2040, and Corridor mixed use in the future land use map in Minneapolis 2040.
Thank you.
Any more comments from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that we have before us, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Dissenting? Okay, so that moves forward, and we have now concluded our business and are adjourned.
We should give this back to them because you can see their account number. You can still see it. We should shred this or get it back to them. Okay, thanks.